Good evening. It's about 11 o'clock on January 6th. We're doing a little bit of a test. The other day, there was a pretty significant traffic jam in Virginia where a lot of people were stranded on the highway for many, many hours in the snow. I think Senator Tim Kaine said he was stuck for 27 hours. But regardless, people were there for a very long time. And then, obviously, the next step was the memes and articles and everything about, boy, if these were electric vehicles, we just, there's no way they could handle it. A bunch of electric vehicle owners online protested that, saying, no, that's ridiculous. I was feeling the same way, but I also thought, well, let's give it a test. And I was going to start this test tomorrow morning, but we have kind of a unique situation here in Minnesota tonight where it is going to get to about 20 below by 7 a.m. And right now we're at 10 below Fahrenheit. So I figured we'd go through that night, experience some really, deep cold temperatures, and see how the car does. So here we are with the Tesla app. I am setting this up to charge. Right now we're at 78%. I'm trying to get to 80%, which is normally what I charge to overnight. So that would be what I would leave the house with. I'm also going to start preheating the cabin, which is another thing I would do, so I can walk out into the warm garage, get into the warm car, and start my day. And I am going to start preconditioning. Click that and we will see cabin start to heat up. If we want to see that in more detail, we can bring up that view. And we've got it set to 70 degrees, which is probably what I'd leave the house with. And you can also see my seat has one little bacon there, preheating that, and the steering wheel as well. And the car should be fairly warm, and assuming I can get all the cameras and stuff set up, we should be able to start our test of being stranded at that point. So I'll come to you next from the car. So we are just about to leave. You can see we're at 78%, still charging because we haven't left. The garage is 23 degrees, but I guarantee it is much colder outside. I do believe this is significantly colder than the situation in Virginia, but I do want to do this test as fairly as I can without making light of the horrible, situation they were all in, no matter what they were driving. It sounds just awful, and trying to recreate it sounds awful too. So I do have some snacks in the car. I did leave my house with 78% on the battery and drove 11 miles to make it seem like we got on the highway and then got stranded on the highway. But now we are back in my driveway. So obviously if I need to use the restroom, I don't have to find a bottle in the car or run to the ditch. Obviously there's a safety factor involved, seeing as how it's going to get so cold overnight. I also didn't pack anything extra that I wouldn't normally take in the car. I specifically didn't clean out the car nor put any new winter things in it. I have the jacket I always wear and a pair of hat and gloves that I would have with me all the time. There might be a heavier winter jacket in the trunk, but if I have to dig that out, I will. But I haven't added anything special to help get me through this test any easier. So we'll see how it goes. I'm documenting all the milestones as we go, and we'll see where we end up. Hopefully the EV can handle it. I don't know if this is going to eat up a lot of battery, but since I'm sitting in here bored, let's watch some TV. In an effort to recreate a realistic scenario, after getting stuck with so much charge, I used some of the entertainment features for a while. But then I assumed I'd be checking social media or news and realized this might be a long-term situation. So I stopped using the extra toys, put camp mode on, and worked on preserving the battery and keeping my phone charged. So you can see we're now at 66% at 11:37. And I bumped that down to 60, but it started blowing cool air to cool the cabin. So I'm gonna just bring that down to 60 degrees slowly. I turned up the seat heaters to 2, and that is very warm on my backside already. I'm gonna start using that heat more than the cabin heat. By midnight, we were down to 66%. And about 9 degrees according to my phone app, but -11 according to the car. When I show the temperature data later, I will take the average if I have two readings that are different between the phone and the car. And at this point and overnight, a lot of times I will just use the phone reading so I'm not waking up the screen for every check-in. Nice to see the camp mode graphic come up there. See the Cybertruck way in the distance. And a little dog from dog mode sitting there. There might be other Easter eggs, but I'm not looking for them now. Alright, it is just after 12:30. I had to run in and use the restroom, but camp mode stayed on. I did grab my other jacket, my winter jacket, out of the back sub trunk. It is very cold, and obviously the heat had to kick back on to get things rolling in here. I think the car thinks it's about minus 12 last time the screen was on. It's now in the dark mode for camp mode, which is good for sleeping. My weather app says it's still only minus 9, so take that for what you will. It's cold. Gonna try to get some sleep, and we'll check in later. It's just past 1 a.m. and we're at about 60%. I just could not get comfortable even with the seat fully reclined. So I know I'm not using the seat heat, but I'm also not changing the climate control at all. My daughter's car seat's still in here, but I've decided to lay down the other sides of the back seats. And even though the back of the car is colder, I think my light jacket over my legs and the heavy jacket on should be okay. I'm not terribly cold, just tired. So we'll see how things go. I do have alarms set throughout the night, so I can get up and check things and just make sure I don't, fall asleep, the car shuts off, and then I freeze, which would be uncool. And then you'd never see this video. So anyway, gonna turn off this light and see if looking out the ceiling I can see some stars, because it's a relatively clear night out there. We're at 55% and about negative 13 according to the phone. So cold. I have been able to get to sleep a little bit. I found a paper towel roll that I could use as a pillow, so that's helped in the comfort department. Legs are a little cold, but doing all right. Hoping to get back to sleep here, so catch you later. All right, unfortunately waking up at 2 made me realize that my legs were getting a little bit colder as I was trying to get back to sleep. It's 15 below outside, so I climbed back up to the front seat. Gonna use the seat heaters now. We're at 53% at 220. Just plowing through the night here. At 3:30 in the morning, I rolled over and took this screenshot. You can see we're down to 47%, and you'll notice the blue snowflake icon has been on the app readout for the last few screenshots. And this is where the app is showing the theoretical capacity if the battery were not cold, and the car is showing us something different. So we'll take a look at that as we have comparison shots both from the screen and the app, but just wanted to point that out here. I apparently didn't have the presence of mind when waking up to take a screenshot of the temperature, but judging by the bordering temperatures from other shots, I would say it was about 16 below zero Fahrenheit. My next check-in was near 5 a.m., with the app showing 41% left on the battery, and the outside temperature is 17 below zero. By 7 a.m., we had hit the depths of the cold at 18 below, and our range had dropped down to 32%. Good morning. It is almost 7:30. My feet are a little cold, but the rest of me is all right. I've had a couple jackets over me, and the seat heater's on. The cabin temp, I think, is still about 60. I've kept just screenshots over the middle of the night. Just woke up a few times. I haven't turned the screen on, both for my sleeping and to save a little juice for the car. But we have been burning quite a bit. It's very cold out. The phone thinks it's minus 18. The car only thinks it's minus 16. But it's also showing 24% battery. So I need to go get my daughter ready for school. I will leave the camp mode on, and the seat heater's on, as well as if I were still in here. Good morning. It is 8:30. I did leave the climate on. You can still hear the fans running. Seat heaters are still going. I just got my daughter on the bus, but I was out of the vehicle for an hour, but the climate and everything continued to run. It says it's still in camp mode, but at 7:30 when I got out, it was saying we were only at 24%, and camp mode's supposed to kick off at 20%. So we'll dig in and see how this is going. We're at 19%, but it's still saying camp mode down there. And actually it's, especially compared to outside, it's quite warm in here. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Still, you can see it's saying negative 16. The bus driver told me he saw negative 18 elsewhere. So we'll see. I'm not going to let the battery get down to the point where we would damage it, so I will cut this short if I have to. But with the sun coming up, I think the temps are going to warm up a little bit today. We'll just see how long we go. And this test, as I was saying earlier, was inspired by the events in Virginia. Obviously, traffic jams can happen anywhere. I just saw this morning that Chris from Dirty Tesla posted a really good video talking about some of the specifics there, and he did a test with his Model X and Model Y that are closer to the temperatures that they were seeing in Virginia. Slightly colder, but comparable to what they were seeing there. So that might be a little more apples to apples comparison, but this is definitely a more deep freeze test. I won't spoil his numbers, but it's definitely worth checking that video out after this one. I'll put a link to it down in the description below. So we are just after 9 a.m. It's showing 16% here in the car, but 23, I think, in the app. So again, the app is showing what the snowflake is hiding, but obviously we don't have access to that unless the car warms up, which at this point would probably mean plugging it in. We've got negative 14 showing in the car, negative 15 showing in on my phone. So with the sun coming out, it is warming up a little bit, so that's good. And we'll just see how we go. Just about 9:30 here and still negative 14 out. We just hit 15% on the battery in the car. I believe the app is still saying 21 maybe, but we have now kicked out of camp mode. Heard the fans kick off, and so restarted the screen to get the temp running again, but we are nearing the end. It is now officially 9:30 and we've dropped down to 14%. So we'll see where we are. I would love to get to 10:30, ideally, just to make it pretty much a full 12 hours. One of the things I was thinking about was in states like Minnesota or Michigan, where Chris did his test, we have better infrastructure and plans in place for big winter storms where the interstates can be closed a little faster. There are also, better snow plows, heavier duty tow trucks, things like that that can, do some of these hard winter jobs and are more used to it. In states with these kind of temperatures, generally, I feel like you could get help within 12 hours. And I'm sure if I took this all the way down to zero, I could get to the 12-hour mark. We'll see what we get when we're at 10% and how much longer we want to push it. We're at 10 a.m. and at 13%. Car is saying 14 below out. The app is saying 11 below out. So pick whoever you like best out of that. Because I'm not in camp mode anymore, if I sit in here too long without pressing the brake or touching the screen, the car will go to sleep. So just did that for a couple minutes. 13% here, 19% showing on the app. So we're still seeing that variance. That's what that snowflake is showing. So we'll see. I have a feeling we're going to get to about 10:30 and then I'll probably call it. But we'll see where we are. It is heating up outside. The sun is coming into the cabin through the glass roof, and so that's probably helping a little bit, keeping the cabin warm. So I'll check back in at 10:30 and see how we're doing. All right, 10:30, and we've got 11% showing in the car, 18% showing in the app. It's negative 11 both in the car and on the app. But 60 degrees still in the cabin, or roughly that, which it's been all night. We'll see where we end up. This is definitely able to handle 12 hours plus in this situation. And had we had more charge initially in the battery, obviously we could do a little more. If the temperatures were higher, I think we could do substantially more. So once we get back into the house, into the studio, I'll put all this together and hopefully make it make sense without too much fan noise, as that's been running through all these tests. So here you can see we are at 10:46. Car still thinks it's 11 below. The app is saying 9 below. 10% battery here. It's saying 17 in the app. Still 60 degrees. As the sun is coming out and probably heating the cabin a little bit, and the temperature outside is rising, we seem to be losing less energy, and I'm feeling pretty good about where we are. I only need to pull in about 15, 20 feet to get into where my charger is. So I'm thinking I might take this all the way down to 5% in the car. But in 12 hours, we went from 71% when we stopped down to 10%. So obviously lost 61% in this very cold overnight. And I'll break down all the stats and stuff inside. But just interesting, that's where we are right now. And I'll pick you back up maybe at 11, maybe when we get to 5%. We'll see how things are going throughout the day. All right, we are at the 13-hour mark, 11:44, 7% battery, 6 below according to the car, and still out here. The day is going by, and the sun must be helping. It's definitely helping with the temperature. All right, it is just past 12:25. That's 14 hours after we unplugged. The car is now down to 4%, just went down from 5, and the car is saying 3 below 0. The app is saying 2 below 0, and I think 11% on the Tesla app is what it's showing on the battery. But this is as far as I want to take it for the sake of a test. Don't want to get down with this cold to damaging the battery. So I'm going to call it here and unplug, and we'll wrap up back in the studio. Here we are back in the studio, all thawed out and ready to look at some numbers. Now, a couple things. Overall, we went over 14 hours from being unplugged to plugging back in. And the way I did my test, I probably should have saved 10 miles or so to do that drive again before plugging back in, but I forgot, and hopefully the data is good enough without that. And speaking of the data, let's take a look at the change in temperature over the night and into the next day. And here you can see we almost got down to 20 below, but stopped just at 18, and then slowly started coming back up as the sun came out. And then if we look at the change in state of charge over that same time, we can see that initial big drop-off where we were driving, and then once we parked, it kind of leveled off. And then we have another dip around the morning, and that's where I was changing from getting that state of charge from the app to what was being displayed in the car, and finally ending up at 4%. Now, I know that drop-off is because of the change of looking at the app versus looking at the car, because once we got further into the morning, I started marking down both states of charge. And you can see here in pink, this is what the app was showing all the way to the end. Now, maybe a focus on that snowflake and the difference and how to get that energy back is a good topic for another video. We're not going to cover that here. I just wanted to point it out. And then I also gave this data to my wife, who does a lot more with charts and graphs than I do. And she came up with this, which kind of shows the slope of the line of state of charge with the temperatures on top of it. And you can see a pretty good correlation of the colder it got, the faster the charge rate was dropping. And then slowly that started to level out in the morning as the temperatures started to rise. But we were already pretty low state of charge at that point. Now, I mentioned Chris from Dirty Tesla. His video had different results. Sean Mitchell's done another video, had different results. And a lot of people around the country are doing videos. I'll put links in the description to some of the other videos on this topic so you can get a good picture of what people are getting in different temperatures in different parts of the country. I know EV Dave's working on one as well. That probably will come out today. Now, after watching some of those, you might be wondering why my results were not as long-lasting as some of theirs. There's probably a joke to be made there, but the truth of the matter is the heat pump is great and super efficient as long as there's heat to pump. And as the temperature gets down near that -20, heat pumps have to work really hard to find any heat in the air to pump. At least that's my understanding of it. So when you're in temperatures of 20 degrees above zero, you're going to get much more efficiency out of it than you are at 20 degrees below zero. But still, 14 hours with this test, I think, is pretty satisfactory in these temperatures. And it's another good time to make a reminder that, especially if you're expecting winter weather or live in a cold climate like this, to always have emergency supplies in your car. Now, in my case, I did have a winter jacket that was heavier duty, but really it wouldn't have been enough had I run out of battery. I would have needed more. So I'm going to add an extra blanket to my kit and just make sure I'm a little more prepared in these intense winter situations. Not that I drive a ton in these conditions, but it's always good to be prepared. And with EVs, you have the frunk, you have the underneath trunk in the Teslas. You've got a lot of storage cubbies where you can stick that extra gear just in case. Take it out in spring and put flip-flops there or something. If you have any questions or constructive criticisms on how I could have done this, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this or learned something, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.